it is time to talk a little bit of high school football recruiting, transfer recruiting, all of the above, because I got something for you after talking to a source over the weekend. It is time for Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. And we'll tell you more about Commercial Bank here in just a second. Tennessee's lack of success, per a very good source, in the transfer portal is somewhat by design. Now, I'm not the guy that gets up here. I think my career speaks to that. I don't defend people blindly just because they're wearing orange. Caleb, for new listeners, can you let them know that? I'm probably the opposite.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't think I was being fed a line. I really don't. But the deal was, here's what I was told. It was 3/4 of the efforts. Now, the person didn't say money. It didn't get into money because I don't think any one person other than maybe Josh Heupel knows what everybody's making. But I was told that 3/4 of the efforts, which certainly some of that is money, it was just going to keeping players. Now, you say, well, they lost 15 guys. They lost Squirrel White. Squirrel has a baby. He needed to make the money. He got a number that I was told there was no point in having a discussion. And I've been in that situation once before when I was working for the Sentinel and freelancing for the Sports Animal, and I had to do one because I was working way too much. And I went in and I just asked for a lot of money. And they just came back to me and they said, well, sorry, we're not even close enough to negotiate. I said, that's fine. I'll just go work for the Sentinel. And then we started the new Sentinel Sports page 6 months later. But what do you think of that? And first of all, if you want to call BS on this reporting, I'm comfortable with that. If you think somebody had an agenda and wanted to feed me a line, it was a very casual conversation. I don't believe that's the case, but you can call BS, but it certainly looks that way. It doesn't look like he was trying to lead me at all. But Tennessee's transfer portal success or lack thereof, I believe, mainly because they want to keep the players they had. And they had to get them sewn up. They weren't expecting Nico and Mike Matthews to come ask for a big bag of money. So that made things hard. So then you didn't know how much you could offer other people. That's the bad part about it. Like, sure, keep your own people, get that done 3 days after the season and know what you can offer other players. So that was a concern to me. And I hope Nico realizes, and Mike Matthews to some extent, that, the more money they take, and once you're financially independent, which is, it used to be for me when I was your age, $1 million, you invest it right, you're financially independent. That probably doesn't get you there nowadays at their age. But I'll say this, if you got $5 million in the bank and you're griping over $6 million when they could use one of those millions to get one of those kids out of Southern California or somebody else, you're absolutely selfish. I understand everybody's got to get theirs. Everybody's got to get theirs, but I'm not going to get into specifics. But Caleb, I believe, based off my overall budget, is pretty well taken care of. And I don't go to him and say, I got to make more money, so you make less. And, we'll renegotiate his contract, I guess, next year. But he doesn't come to me and holding my feet to the fire and say, you got to pay me more. So, a lot of this to me, the thing that's so frustrating about it is there's just nothing in place by the NCAA, the SEC, or whoever. That's the troubling part to me. Thoughts?
Okay, so a few things on this. I agree you're absolutely selfish. And also, you're short-sighted because you could be derailing your draft stock, because a lot of your draft stock can be impacted by the type of help you have around you in college.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
What we need to say is what we're thinking. We just need to come out and say it. Guys like Nico and Mike Matthews are selfish. Now,
yes,
let's take Sham Umarov, who took a big step. If he went from 400, I'm making up numbers, I don't know. If he went to the coaches and said, it's obvious I'm going to be a contributor. You saw it enough on the field. I'm making $400,000. Can you get that up to $800,000? Well, I have no problem with that because he's not financially independent.
And that's a gigantic difference from like $2 to $2.5 million.
Right. You're absolutely right. So at the end of the day, I believe Nico and Mike Matthews in particular, and I'm sure there were others, but I can't think of who they would be that are of that superstar status that haven't moved on. But I think those two guys were selfish in their offseason demands, period.
Okay, so I agree. Now let's put this point out there. This is where it's even more selfish in the NFL. For those who don't know, and I want to make this clear to you guys, every single case of NFL players holding out for more money is at the request of the players union. I think you know that, Dave, right? Like the players union has been very clear. They don't want you to play for a cent less than what your market value is. Because if you take a pay cut, then in the next round of collective bargaining negotiations, you give the owners leverage to say we should not have to pay you this much or guarantee this much for the players. So what I want to point this out now. What a lot of people don't understand about the NFL, every single player that is being as greedy as possible for the money, they're doing that at the behest of the players union, because it's not about them at that point. It is about the lower level offensive linemen. That's why Aaron Rodgers demanded $15 million a few years ago. I don't know where you come on that, David. I feel like, don't you agree that like when NFL players ask for more money, there's a greater cause than just them getting money?
I don't know.
It's about the players union is what they're thinking about.
I think it depends who you're talking about. I mean, I think there are some guys that want that big last payday, and there are other guys like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have taken less money. So
Patrick hasn't. Patrick just signed a big contract.
It's backloaded. I mean,
well, Patrick signed a big contract. Yeah, but Patrick signed a huge contract, and then the market went up after he signed that contract. Tom Brady,
you worked with him because it's very, very backloaded.
Right. But Tom Brady, you're right, took less money, and a lot of people didn't like that Tom Brady was taking less money. A lot of people had a problem with that for years because they felt Tom Brady was undercutting the players union to try win in their negotiations with the owners. And so I think that's a big problem. Now, to the point of Nico, Mike Matthews, everything like that, look, I do kind of believe Tennessee is focused more on building with high school talent. They haven't been able to do it to this point. I think there's a strong possibility just recruiting was suffering because of what Josh Heupel inherited, and he's finally got it to a certain level. Finally, I think Josh Heupel may consider his first two recruiting classes borderline throwaways of just getting bodies. And he's finally able to get guys that he's able to plug in and start to develop, which is why it's taken so long maybe for an offensive lineman out of high school to start on Tennessee, as Cooper Mays thinks will happen later this year. The Michigan model is the model going forward for a lot of teams. Let's talk about it. Notre Dame's in the national title game. They probably spent most of their NIL money on keeping their players. They didn't make splashes in the portal last year.
No, you're right.
Michigan just won the national title. They didn't make any splashes in the portal. The model for a lot of teams.
So is Tennessee falling in line? Because football is a copycat game. Is Tennessee falling in line with what Michigan did 2 seasons ago?
Yes. And Josh Pate has reported this on his show. He told us, he said last summer that Tennessee was the first school to embrace NIL. But when they did it, apparently Danny White, they hired a bunch of people and they thought A, B, C, D, E, F, not just A. Tennessee is handling NIL the way Nick Saban game plans, which is, as you know, Dave, Nick Saban plans for every single possible scenario that you could ever think of in football when he game plans. And Tennessee apparently has reportedly thought of every possible scenario that NIL would lead to. They have now determined that in an era of players moving around, provided you have a base level of talent, chemistry can start to outweigh raw talent, which we saw with Ole Miss, by the way. Ole Miss was good enough to beat any team in college football this year, but they were not mature enough to beat Georgia and maintain their momentum enough to beat Florida 2 weeks later because they didn't have any chemistry. And so I think, and by the way, we've talked about this before. The 98 team, while super talented, I mean, I don't want to dismiss how talented they were. Probably not the most talented team Fulmer had, right? Maybe the 4th most talented team Fulmer had, something like that.
I'd say somewhere in there, yeah.
Won the national title because of their chemistry. Very mature football team that team was. And I think they're in this day and age with football, with the talent being scattered and no Alabamas or Georgias anymore that can go like 7 deep with their rosters, I think the chemistry is going to outweigh it. I think Tennessee sees that. It jives with me thinking they're ahead of the curve because I think that's an ahead of the curve way to think. And yes, so I think they're following the Michigan model.
Well, I'm going to take it a step further. Bank on it. Tennessee is doing exactly what they want to in recruiting. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work, but bank on it. Tennessee's focus is about keeping players at Tennessee and not having them.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, welcome back. Let's bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. They are absolutely fantastic. Love them. Also want to thank our friends at Work Trucks. All about trucks. Work Trucks, they're actually available. They help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. That seems pretty simple. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to handle whatever you need. That's Work Trucks, intent on offering things that other dealerships just can't. Contract is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. That's a fact. Remember, Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. Get the truck, get it fit to a T. Boom, you're all set. WorkTrucksLLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com. All right, we did this day in Tennessee sports history. I want to get...
Sorry, I just wanted to stick on your bank on it real quick. So you think Tennessee and Josh Heupel are not unhappy at all with the way their portal work has gone?
Well, I'm sure there's one or two guys that they would like to have.
Well, I don't mean like nobody's ever perfectly satisfied, but you think the big picture macro scale, let's go on according to plan.
Yeah. When you say macro, that makes me think his whole career.
No, I mean like macro, like when I say macro, I mean like not every micro moment has gone to plan. Like they maybe lost out on a player that they wanted, but I mean a macro scale, like, okay, you expect to lose some players that you wanted. You expect to get some player put on a macro scale. I'm just saying general, overall things have gone to plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, what did they need to do initially? They needed to just survive. Okay. They did that because it was a dumpster fire. Then what did they need to do? They needed a splash get in recruiting. They got that with Nico. I was a little surprised that Nico didn't recruit as much for Tennessee as I thought a 5-star quarterback would, but nevertheless. And now they feel like their talent level is up. So the last thing they want is to lose key players. And I don't think of the 15 players, and I looked at them over the weekend, the only one that stood out to me as significant was Squirrel White. That was it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, again, with Amari Jefferson, with Braylon Staley still on the roster, and with their plans to use Boo Carter on offense, I don't think Squirrel White's going to be as much of a loss as people think.
They don't either. Caleb Webb, he left as well. Chaz Nimrod, receiver. Nathan Leacock, tight end. Nate Spillman, Gaston Moore, Caleb Perry, Holden Stays, Jason Jenkins. So of those three, of that listing, I want to ask you about three guys in particular. It is 4 downs, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count 4 downs? 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.com. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, I don't have all my drops in here, so we're going to have to do this without Cooper saying, Cooper Mays here, first down. But I'll do it. Cooper Mays here, first down. All right. Is Squirrel White the most significant player they lost?
Yeah, I'll go with that. They don't have a ton of depth in the slot, so I'll probably say yeah. Squirrel White's probably their most significant loss.
Yeah, and he's proven. The rest of these guys aren't. All right, for the most part. A couple of other guys I want to ask about. So pull up the list again. My goodness. All right, it's been one of those mornings already. All right, Chaz Nimrod.
No, I don't think Nimrod's that big.
No, I'm sure they can find a slow receiver with bad hands somewhere else. Nathan Leacock. I never understood. By the way, Chaz was second down. This is third down. I never understood the infatuation among the fan base with Nathan Leacock. When I watched him, I never saw a great explosion or anything else. So he's third down. How big of a loss is that?
I think people fell in love with his recruiting prowess. He was a 4-star across the board, but yeah, I don't think it's a big loss either. Never could get on the field or into the rotation.
I'll give you the one that I think is a significant loss. Hang tight. We're going to go. I'm going to tell you this brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, and we'll discuss a significant loss that maybe we're overlooking.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
All right, Caleb. So the one that I think is significant is Holden stays. That'll be fourth down. I do think that's significant because it's harder to play 12 personnel, as they mentioned to us last year, unless you have 3 tight ends. Because if you lose one, it makes it more difficult to run tempo because you've got to have 2 tight ends rotating, ideally like they had Princeton Fant and Jacob Warren in 2022. So I do believe he's a significant loss. I don't think he's a great tight end, but he filled a void that the Vols had and now have.
Yeah, but Holden stays expected to be the #1 tight end, and he wasn't because he lost the job to Miles Kitselman. I don't think he's that big of a loss because they have Ethan Davis and Miles Kitselman, plus they're adding 2 tight ends, Jack Van Dorslier and Deshaun Brame, both coming out of high school in this recruiting class. So they'll be 4 deep. They'll be fine.
Caleb, how many times have we said this guy's going to have an impact in year one, especially at a skilled position? Tight end's half a skilled position, and they haven't. So, I mean, if they go into it just feeling comfortable with 2 tight ends, Kitselman and Davis, then they've made a misstep. And you've got to have another guy that you're ready for. Because if they have to dial it down to that 12 personnel again, and you better be ready for that. I mean, I think you've got to have 2 tight ends for that. Excited.
They will, though. They're going to be fine. Ethan Davis can do everything Holden Stace can do. Plus, they're going to add 2 more. They're going to be fine.
3. They're
going to have 4. They add 2 tight ends in this recruiting class.
I mean, you have much more faith that a player is going to show up and have an impact on offense in year #1 than I do.
I don't think there's anything they could do to have less of an impact than Stays. So,
okay, all right. I just know that Stays got on the field early, so they felt good about him.